Hello and welcome to this channel. This is English TV with Miss Shirley. So we're still looking at Fathers of Nation. Previously we looked at the plot summary of Fathers of Nation. Right now we want to look at the thematic concerns in Fathers of Nations. So we say in Fathers of Nations talks about a summit that takes place in Banjul, Gambia, to bring forth a development strategy in order to bring change to Africa. So the best of the best have come up with a development strategy which they call Way Omega. But we have a group of 4 people who think that Way Omega is not good enough, and they therefore come up with their own development strategy which they call Path Alpha. So we have these four people who have undergone different things in their lives in the different African countries. We had Professor Kimani from Kenya, a 60-year-old Kenyan professor. We had Engineer Saif Kirk. We had Engineer Saif Tahir from Libya. We also had Comrade Melusi from Zimbabwe. We had Pastor Chineke Chiamaka from Nigeria and Abiola Fila Afolabi. These people have undergone lives in their different countries which make them have a grudge towards their African leaders, and therefore they come in and want to bring out a strategy that will bring about a difference in Africa. So today we look at the thematic concerns in Fathers of Nation, and the first theme that is clearly shown by the novel is poor leadership. This is one of the main themes in the novel Fathers of Nations by Paul.B.Vitta. We expect fathers of nations to take care of their nations, but in this case, the African leaders, the fathers of Africa, do not take care of their African countries. They end up taking part in corruption and impunity, which is a setback towards the development of Africa. So, poor leadership is seen as one of the major themes in Fathers of Nations. The leaders in Africa cannot give a sense of direction to their countries. They are shown as flawed human beings who cannot rise to the challenges of their times. We saw a good example with Gambia's president. In Banjul, he was supposed to be the chair of the summit because the summit was taking place in his country. But since he's not ready for the task, meaning he didn't prepare for the task, he hands it over to someone else. And in this case, he was supposed to be the chair of the summit. We see this as an example of poor leadership because a leader should be ready for any task. A leader should therefore prepare for all tasks that come their way. So we are shown how these leaders are flawed human beings who cannot rise to the challenges of their times. They are people experimenting with various ideological positions originating from different places. They were to discuss Way Omega but found it nowhere. Most of these leaders didn't even go through the Way Omega strategy and didn't even get to know what it talks about. So we can clearly see how these are poor leaders who bring about a setback in the development of Africa, both politically, economically, and socially. They were to discuss Way Omega but found it nowhere. It means they were not prepared. They were all not prepared for the summit. We also had President Bangura didn't even read the strategy. Path Alpha found its way on the agenda and is passed as a way forward. They didn't prepare for the summit. The strategy they were supposed to discuss was therefore not there, and another strategy got its way into the summit. You can see how this is a risk as an African leader. What happens if it meant the security of your own people or an African country? So the book goes on to portray how dysfunctional most African countries are. The leadership is poor and insincere, and out of touch with the happenings on the ground. The presidents don't even know what is happening on the ground. People are barely living in shelters or having food to eat, but themselves live in their castles and enjoying their lives while the African people are suffering. If a citizen tries to air out their concerns, they end up either dead or in jail, like we saw the case of Pastor Chineke Chiamaka. He talked about the government's uh, being not able to deal with corruption, and this made him lose his job as a pastor and led him to jail. The presidents at the summit have little to share. The confusion is too much and the agenda is not clear. They definitely have little to share because they're not prepared for the summit. They didn't prepare for the summit. So they definitely cannot share their concerns, their ideas about that strategy. There was confusion and the agenda was not clear. Good leaders are supposed to prepare beforehand, go through the strategy, go through their agenda and see how their meeting will be. But you see the case of the African presidents, there's confusion. They didn't prepare. They meet in Banjul, Gambia just to fulfill their calendar needs. They just go on to the summit because they're supposed to go to the summit. They didn't go there for the benefit of Africa and its people. In the eyes of Asia, Professor Kimani's wife, who later becomes the politician Newborn's wife, poor leadership has translated to poor roads, which in the long run have aggravated accidents. His only daughter is killed in a car accident. Consequently, desperation sets in, leading a divorce. So, poor leadership has led to poor governance. Poor leadership has led to poor roads, poor structures, which in turn led to Professor Kimani's daughter Tuni dying from a fatal accident. The leader of Comrade Melusi's group is sacked because he's from the Beles tribe, while the country's leader is from the Shona. African leaders are also drawing tribal lines. Because you don't come from my community, I either kill you or you get out of their government. What kind of leadership is that? So that is poor leadership. As a leader, you should be a leader to all and not to a specific tribe and not to other tribes. So Comrade Melusi's group and community, including the wife, were wiped out and murdered because they were from a different tribe. And it meant you come from a different tribe, that means you don't support the government because the leader is from another tribe. In Zimbabwe, the Ndebele are wiped out because they are perceived to be against the government. That is so sad. An African leader should be a leader to all and not just a leader to some. So we also had another theme, the theme of poverty. The novel also brings about a devastating picture of people on a knife's edge of daily survival. International imperialistic networks of control have captured and imprisoned the continent. African countries are sucked into meaningless loans with international financial institutions. These development loans have unrealistic demands. As a result, the continent continues to sink into the abyss of poverty. Pastor Chineke Chiamaka is arrested and put in police custody for preaching about the government's failure to deal with issues bedeviling the nation. He's even banned from preaching after his release. The heads of state appoint President Bangura, who previously stated that he will not look at two documents as chairman of a committee. This is a bit of an irony because you don't expect a chairman to not go through the documents. A chairman is supposed to have a full view of a document, read through them, see which one is better than the other. But in this case, they choose a chairman who doesn't even know anything, who is very old to even read. And we can see that clearly shows the state of African leadership. Poor leadership, which brings about poverty. So this President Bangura says he can't read, but still is chosen as the chairman, who is tasked with reviewing documents and providing guidance. How do you expect someone to provide guidance when they can't even read what they're supposed to read, what the meeting is about? So Professor Kimani joins University of Nairobi directly as a senior lecturer from the University of Oxford. At that time, the professors earned more than the politicians, but the politicians came in and decided that they need to earn more than anyone else. So this is a state of the African leadership. It shows poor leadership, as the African leaders are all about benefiting themselves other than benefiting the people of their countries. So we've looked at only two themes. Let's look at other themes in our next video. I hope you enjoyed this one. Please go through The Fathers of Nations by Paul.B.Vitta and tell me what you think in the comment section. Please like my videos, please comment, please subscribe. Let's meet on the next video. Goodbye.